Has anyone been paying attention to just how radical Elon Musk has been on Twitter recently? I don't know whether you've noticed, but he's tweeting some pretty hardline things. Now, this is by far the sort of softest of it. Why is a false history of slavery taught in American schools? Great question. Great question. Why have we allowed leftists to educate our children, create a false narrative of what happened? And it's not like you can't point to the narrative and say the actual narrative of what has happened and say, well, there are bad things. Of course there are bad things in there, but not uniquely evil things. And that's what the left have been trying to do. Create the narrative that the left and white people in particular are somehow uniquely evil throughout world history. Now, this is just not true. White people are not uniquely evil. Lots of evil has happened long before white people were anything anyone ever talked about anywhere, in fact. Really terrible things have happened all over the world, and most of the time they just continued. And occasionally you would get some king or prince or lawgiver who would be particularly magnanimous, particularly compassionate, and they would put an end to these things. I mean, one thing to look up is, one leader to look up is Ashoka the Great, who had a vast empire in India, massacred many, many people, and then became a pacifist after he had subdued all of his enemies out of guilt for the blood that he had shed. Like this is an unusual person throughout history. Most conquerors, most civilizations didn't care. And so the fact that European civilization does have that Christian compassion and charity within it is one of the things that actually marks it apart from most of the other civilizations. I mean, if we talk about slavery in particular, the impulse to end slavery primarily came from Christianity, and it was filtered through the sort of English lens of rights and liberties, and it ends up in the liberal worldview that slavery is wrong in every case, which of course I agree that it is because I'm an Englishman. But why is a false history being taught? The answer is, of course, to demoralize the United States, to make sure that the people of the United States will not fight for their own country, for the integrity of their country, for the possession of their own country, because the idea is to make them feel reviled by their own country, to make them feel grossed out about it, to make them feel as if the country is not something they want to be associated with, which is a pretty bloody evil thing to do, isn't it? It's absolutely insane to poison people's minds before they're able to make rational decisions of their own into thinking that their own country is something that they should avoid. And this is the point. As Hunter Ash here has said, is a nation a specific people united by heritage, tradition, and shared values, or is it any arbitrary entity defined by paperwork? This is the core political issue of our time, which is absolutely correct, and Elon has clearly picked his side. Members of a nation must have a common culture, or it is not a nation. I agree. And that puts him firmly on the right. So the libertarian tech bro Elon seems to have evolved rather swiftly. Remember back at the beginning of the year where he was talking about the H-1Bs? In a year, he's realized, oh wait, actually there is more to a nation than merely productivity. And actually, if you look at it, yes, it has to be. A nation is a group of people who are related by not only blood, but also history, also ancestry, culture, norms. The way that they view the world are all things that bind the people together. And Elon is arriving at that point. And so he goes on about this. It's deeply weird. The absolute top priority for a lot of American and European politicians is bringing in millions of unvetted third world migrants. They could have shut down right-wing populism entirely by compromising on this issue, but they refuse. And Elon thinks this is about importing a left-wing voting bloc that depends on government handouts. Now, that is true on one level, but on another level, it's also about the overall mission, which is destroying the European nations. It is destroying the United States, destroying Canada, destroying Australia, destroying Western Europe. They are on the universalist position that any amount of parochial feeling towards one's own nation is essentially an inevitable path towards Nazism, and so destroying the nations prevents that from ever happening again. And so it is true that they do want to use these people as voting blocks in order to gain power and leverage themselves to be able to further destroy the nation. But primarily, it's actually about the destruction of the nation. And he's arriving at some very important points that are inflection points. When you decide that murder is much worse than words, suddenly all of the words that they use against you mean very little, which I think is very good and admirable that he's arrived there, because a lot of people don't arrive there. Piers Morgan hasn't arrived there. Like, none of our politicians, apart from Rupert Lowe, have arrived there. And so, saying, well, hurty words are bad, getting past that is significant, and it's good that we are. Your government is taking money out of your pocket to house people who would rape your children. This might be a blunt way to put it, but it's simply the truth. Yeah, it is. It's, as Elon points out, the brutal truth. You are paying for your own replacement from people who will literally put you in jail if you complain about the potential rapists that they house next to you. Like, this, genuinely, this is true. And Elon is not sugarcoating it when he retweets all of this stuff. And this is obviously inspired by the series of rapes that have happened in Britain in the past week that have been awful, absolutely awful. And here's Elon just raising awareness from Nigel Farage. Thank goodness it's being talked about. And he points out, yes, the Mayor of London does hate white people. That's true. No question of it. I mean, he literally said that white people don't represent real Londoners. So, yeah, Sadiq Khan does hate white people. There's no question of it. And so Elon's got to the point where it's like, you know what? I don't want any more anti-white propaganda. Now, you'll notice that he is capitalizing the W in white here. That means that this is a nominative, not merely a descriptive noun that he is using, as in the noun stipulates, denotes. It has a normative aspect to it. It describes a nation. And this is something that the alt-right was trying to meme into existence back in 2017. It didn't work back then, but Elon has just begun using it repeatedly. And I mean, you'll notice that Matt Walsh does not capitalize the white. He's using it in a descriptive term, which is perfectly valid, obviously. But I think that this has been done by Elon on purpose, because you'll remember the New York Times, Washington Post, all the big media outlets during the time of George Floyd decided to start capitalizing the B in black to denote that the black Americans are a separate nation within a nation, to essentially give them an impetus to demand a kind of secession, which I think is reflected now in Elon capitalizing the W in white. I've noticed that a lot of the sort of younger Gen Xers, Elon I think is 51, 52, something like that. It's not terribly old for Gen Xer. I'm the youngest of the Gen Xers at 46, and Elon's quite young for a Gen Xer. And Gen Xers can go up to about 65 now. But I've noticed the younger Gen Xers can become quite based quite quickly, actually. And here Elon is, no more white guilt. Gen Z is done apologising for the history that they didn't write. Yeah, we were never a fan of it either, but to be honest, they weren't bombarding us like they have been for you guys. When we were young, it didn't come up. They just didn't bombard us with it. And it was only in about the 2010s when it started becoming a very salient political issue. And then I started my channel, and the rest, I guess, is history. But a lot of the younger Gen Xers are very quick to go, fuck you, fuck you, I'm not having it. And Elon's clearly one of them. And I tell you what, there are going to be a lot of people on Twitter who want to pat themselves on the back. Elon Musk, 20 million views to his, how many has he got now? 229.6 million followers, quote, "Remigration is the normal position." Oh, God, you love to hear it, don't you? That is an incredible, absolutely incredible tweet from Elon, by the way. And then he's even got to this one. This isn't this woman's own take. I'm sure this is an old 4chan thing. But we are witnessing the greatest act of cuckoldry in all of human history, an entire civilization willing to give away its land, women and children because the alternative is being called a racist. And Elon has got, yes, we need to save America and the entire West. And what he is saying there is essentially what Nick Fuentes was saying on Piers Morgan, I don't care if you call me a racist. We need to stop caring if they call you names. The Rupert Lowe position. I don't care. I do not care what you call me, because this belongs to ours and our nation and our people, and it doesn't belong to them. They have countries of their own. And we need to start being particular, parochial, and possessive over these things. These are ours, not theirs. And it's okay for us to say that. It's okay for them to say about theirs. It's okay for us to say about ours. And it doesn't mean that all brown people are bad. It doesn't mean all white people are good. It doesn't mean anything beyond. We have the collective claim to our lands, and they don't.